Buckeyes are rolling, not necessarily a great time for a bye week in that regard, but a good reset for the finale of the Big Ten season, and what lies ahead could be a good thing for the Buckeyes. We will talk Ohio State football as we always do every Wednesday with the very best in the business, Steve Hellwagon, Bucknuts 247 Sports, Tony Gerdeman, Buckeye Scoop, typically joined by Kevin Noon as well. We don't know if Kevin's going to be here, but we always appreciate his contribution, of course. Boys, how we doing today?
Doing good.
Doing well.
Good. Of course, we want to talk football. Of course, we want to have a few laughs. Of course, we want to have a good time. We will start with something a lot more somber, just to pay honor and acknowledge the news that's come down here in the last 24 hours regarding former Ohio State player Devon Beaugaard, 27 years old, passed away in a house fire. Glenville High School to Ohio State in Urban Meyer's first recruiting class, Steve. And, you know, anytime there's a loss of life, it's just shakes us all up. And, of course, reminds us why we're here and what the important parts of this life are.
Yeah. Excuse me. Man, I'm having a problem talking. No doubt he was part of that Glenville pipeline that produced so many great players over the years for Ohio State. And I think hopes were pretty high that he would have a chance, I think, to help Ohio State possibly in the secondary. And he was a great special teams player, no doubt. You know, he was probably edged out by some very good secondary players. And as I recall, had some injury issues as well. And I'm sure Tony's probably got some better remembrances of him than me. He was always just kind of a player on the periphery, someone on the verge of being a regular player for the Buckeyes, but maybe never quite got there. And as I understand, it was some type of an accidental fire that got started at his house, and he happened to be inside and perished. The firefighters found him when they got inside the house, I believe in Elyria, Ohio, if I'm not mistaken. I may not have the exact town correct, but at any rate, just a tremendous loss. I know a lot of former players and guys he played with at Ohio State have been passing on condolences on the various social media platforms, and just sad to hear this. Somebody that really had so much life left to lead, and probably so many lessons to share, and could touch a lot of people. He's obviously gone today, and it is a sad day, no doubt.
My recollection is that he was also the first player to lose his black stripe. Urban Meyer instituted that practice when he came to Ohio State, and he was the first Buckeye freshman to lose it. And you do that through hard work and just showing up and doing exactly what you're asked, and then excelling at it. And yeah, he did, had injuries throughout his career, and would come back from an injury and then suffer another one. And as Steve said, he was always just on the verge, and everybody loved him. Everybody liked him. Everybody spoke highly of him. Just one of those guys who couldn't get healthy, but I still think made the most of his time and took advantage of what was put out for him from the university and things like that. And it's, then you hear this terrible thing yesterday. So yeah, it's very unfortunate. See too many of these over the years where it's, it just, how is this possible? That sort of thing where, we're all much too young, but then you see somebody even younger, and it's always unfortunate. And always, just, as you said, Mark, just grounds you a little bit, and then then you try to just pick up and continue on. But yeah, terrible news. And I don't know where he had, where things had gone for him after Ohio State, but I do remember that coaches always spoke highly of him, teammates always spoke highly of him, and so yeah, definitely gone too soon.
Devon Bogart, 27 years old, played in 22 games for the Buckeyes and was part of the 2014 national championship game, and again, part of Urban Meyer's first recruiting class. Got Tony Gerdeman here, Buckeye Scoop, along with Steve Hellwagon from 247 Sports, Bucknuts. So please, of course, follow them to their respective sites. They're insight into Ohio State football is amazing, and all of us benefit from it here each and every Wednesday. We had to go a little bit early today, so hopefully everyone got the notifications through Twitter, through my YouTube channel, and various means. So whether you're watching on the replay or here live, of course, if you're live and you have a comment or question for Steve and or Tony and myself, then serve them up there on the live chat. Tony, in regards to the defensive changes, of course, under expected performance out of this defense, and then changes made, it seems as though that starting at the top with Ryan Day, that they've been very forthcoming about the changes. Of course, they're not going to be openly critical, but in regards to the duties being switched from Kerry Combs to Matt Barnes, in regards to preparation and play calling on game day, Kerry Combs spoke more openly about it this week in his new and different role. Kind of go take us through what he had to say and your interpretation of.
Well, the interpretation of can go a lot of different ways because people have different interpretations of what his future is after hearing him talk yesterday. But it was a simple question. Hey, Kerry, how's the transition going? How has it gone for you? And then I think it was 3.5 minutes of him just talking about how this is the most difficult part of his coaching career, but then said, if this is as difficult as it gets, then I've had a pretty good life and I've had a pretty good career, which to this point I would agree with. And the thing that struck me most is, it sucks for him and he isn't happy with it and it's still raw, but this is a guy who has told his players for decades, hey, stick it out, keep fighting. A guy that gets benched, hey man, keep practicing. You will have an opportunity. And just because you get benched today doesn't mean you're not going to play next week. And then he said, if I were to just leave after having this taken away from me, if I were to just leave, then I would have been lying to every single player I've ever told, hey, be tough, stick it out. And so this is one of those things where he lived what he was preaching for all of these years. And you could tell it was still very raw to him. It still hurts, but he allowed himself like one day of sorrow, and even then said he wasn't going to let anybody see it on his face, and because he doesn't want any sympathy. But I think after watching and listening to that whole thing, I came away thinking I expect him back. Other people came away thinking they expect him completely gone because he only talked about the fighting for this season. And so I'm interested to see what Steve thinks, what you think, what when you guys saw that, because to me, I came away thinking he'd be back, but now I'm hearing other people talking. I don't know what to think anymore.
Yeah, I was very impressed with how he handled himself. He came right out and addressed it honestly and was very emphatic, as he always is as a public speaker, and reiterated again, if this is the worst thing that happens to him in his coaching career, then he's had a really good coaching career because this is something that he can survive. Obviously, he's making a lot of money as the defensive coordinator at Ohio State, I believe as much as $1.4 million a year, which is pretty good pay. And they're probably not going to cut his pay, even though he's not going to be calling games, theoretically anytime soon. My guess is what they'll probably try and do is upgrade Barnes to a co-coordinator role after the season and pay him commensurate with what they're paying Kerry Combs, and attack it like that. Seems to be the best thing. He's a great recruiter for Ohio State. And to listen to Ryan Day, he says it's a collaborative effort throughout the week, and they establish what they want to do in down and distance and against certain personnel groupings. And so in the game, it just flows, that everything is just kind of predetermined, and Barnes, may have to make a tough call here and there. But in general, it seems like they are in lockstep on how they want to approach calling the defense at this point, and at least that's how Day is portraying it. Kerry Combs seemed to establish that he's an Ohio guy, an Ohio State guy, loves Ohio State, and you'll have to pull Ohio State out of his dead cold hands is how I kind of took it, and to borrow the old Gordon Gee playoff line. But you know, I guess anything could happen, and I guess the jury is out. Let's see how the next 6 games play out. If they get gashed down the stretch by Michigan State, which is putting up huge numbers offensively right now against some, questionable opponents, just as Ohio State is. Let's just see down the stretch how this goes. I don't know that Penn State without Clifford, or although Clifford ought to be back here in the next few weeks, you would think, or Michigan are going to put up a huge number against Ohio State, but or Iowa for that matter. But if the defense doesn't seem to continue this progress, then they may have a mind to just blow the whole thing up and hire 4 new defensive coaches altogether. And if that's how it goes, that's how it goes. I don't know. I don't have an inclination. I don't think even Ryan Day knows what tomorrow is going to bring or tomorrow holds. But so far, so good. Last probably, well, you wouldn't even really count Akron, but the last 2 games have been very good defensively. So I think they're on a good trajectory, getting those young guys experience. They've settled on a core of guys to play, which I think was important. And if what Day is saying is true, that the staff seems to be in lockstep right now in how they approach opposing offenses, then it sounds like you got a pretty good game plan for the second half of the season.
I would also add that, do we even know if Kerry Combs is under contract next year? Because deals are usually like two years for coaches, for assistants. So
yeah, and this is second year back. So
they may be able to get him for, $750 or something like that, or whatever they want to do. But Steve, I want to ask you, because I've been doing this for, a decade, going to the press conferences, and I was there for all of the awkward Gene Smith, Jim Tressel stuff, the Urban Meyer hiring, the Luke Fickell kind of awkward year, and then the handing over to Ryan Day. Like, yesterday's session was one of the top 5, like, you'll remember forever. I think it was Combs left and the room was pretty silent, and then it started to buzz, and it was like, that was unlike anything I'd ever seen before.
Yeah, it was very raw, very human, very emotional, just as he is, wears his feelings on his sleeves. And Jared Smalley, toward the end, it's on Tony's site, it's on our site, the video clips. Really, if you're an Ohio State fan, you need to take 25 minutes and go watch it, because I think it really strikes at the heart of who he is as a person, as a football coach. But toward the end, Jared Smalley from Channel 4 asked him, do you have any kind of grudging respect for Ryan Day as a former head coach, having to make such a difficult call in the moment? And Combs kind of had to bite his lip, like, so you want me to praise the guy who demoted me, but it wasn't even really framed that way. It was just more like, can you appreciate the situation that Ryan Day was in? And Kerry said, I really wish you hadn't asked me that, because it is and I think he said that kind of tongue in cheek or in jest. I mean, the early return is that Ryan Day made the right call, so I mean, and yet let's grade it when they're playing a top 20 offense, not, some of these, Maryland without 2 of its best receivers, as it turned out, or Rutgers, which, station to station 6 yards is a good play, So I think let's get a little deeper into this before we start, crowning anybody as the savior of the Ohio State defense just yet. But so far, it looks like he made the right call, and Jared, I think, put him on the spot. And I agree with you, Tony. I think this was raw human emotion, honesty. And this is a guy you can win with, I think, and in the proper role. And I think securing players, coaching players, Sunday through Friday, and then letting them play on Saturday, kind of getting out of their way, maybe. That might be his role.
One of the aspects of what we do is that people want us to get into the hearts and minds of individuals and determine, would they take this job, or what do they really mean when they say this? Which I don't revel in, because I'm not the person to try to make those assumptions and so forth. But it sounds like Kerry Combs, being the person that he is from that standpoint, being pretty transparent for a coach, especially, that the only thing that I'll take from what I saw, and I did not see the entire 25 minutes, but we'll watch it, is that sounds like, he knows what, if this just happened to him, then who am I to conjecture about what my future could be? It's really not up to me. So it's better for me just to focus on the next 6 games and the remainder of this season and do my very best. And this is where the focus should be anyway. But, everyone always has their career aspirations and path in mind. But he seems as though he's really thinking, okay, I'm just going to lay it on the line, do the very best job that I can in this role, but it's up to other people to decide. So who am I to conjecture about my future?
Well, I'll just say I think his biggest market value remains at Ohio State because he has recruited. I mean, in the 2 or 3 years he was gone, they didn't get any good secondary players. Sorry to, hit you between the eyes with the reality there. They got good secondary players, but now that he's back, they got 2 or 3 national top 100 players. Burke's playing as a freshman. J.K. Johnson is another national top 50 or top 100 guy that they got. I think, he's been a little dinged up and hadn't played as a freshman, but they're starting to recruit secondary players again. So if you got somebody that can bring in national top 100 secondary players, that guy's worth his weight in gold, because that position, along with defensive end, along with quarterback, and in this offense, wide receiver and running back, those are probably the 3 or 4 most important positions on the field. So he has tremendous value at Ohio State, just his worth as a recruiter. Now, if he were to leave Ohio State out of spite or out of pride or whatever it might be on his own accord after this season, Luke Fickell would hire him at Cincinnati in about 6 minutes, I would think, to do something. Because of his history as the Coleraine head coach down in Cincinnati. I think he was at University of Cincinnati prior to coming to Ohio State. And so if there was an opening at Cincinnati, I would think that he would end up there pretty quickly. But beyond that, where would he go? What would he do? He's the most money he can make in this profession as an assistant coach is at Ohio State right now. So to me, if it's a dollars and cents thing, it may probably isn't. He's probably independently wealthy, I would think, after 10 years at this level. But, it is what it is. And, you want to be appreciated. You want to be – and I think Day has gone a long way out of his way in the last 7 days to say, we do appreciate this guy. Gave him the game ball after the game on Saturday. Talked him up again in the press conference yesterday. So I think that that Day has done everything he can to smooth this thing over. Not that he really needed to, because, heavy is the crown or the head that sits the crown or whatever, whatever the hell that thing is. But got a tough job there, So sometimes you gotta crack a few eggs to make the omelet, and that's what Ryan Day had to do.
It seems like Kerry Combs' success as a recruiter, and the reason for part of that was on display at that news conference. That's probably one of the reasons he's able to connect with 17 and 18-year-olds.
And their parents.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, folks, we've got Tony Gerdeman here, Buckeye Scoop. Steve Hellwagon from Bucknuts 247 Sports, of course, talking Buckeyes here with you every Wednesday. Had to change the time today. Hopefully you get those notifications. If you did not, that's one of the reasons why you subscribe here to the Voice of College Football, and appreciate everyone pushing us past 30,000 subs a couple days ago. All right, everyone, let's, of course, this is the ever exciting and sexy bye week edition. Let's go back to the Maryland game, because Steve, for me, and I'll play off of the comment that's on the screen right now in regards to, how much can we take from these performances, blowing bad teams out. we saw a little separation within the Eastern Division over the past couple of weeks, meaning Maryland and Rutgers aren't all of their 3-4-0 starts. But still, you have those prolific offenses that can score 1,000,000 points against bad defenses. But when they hit a good defense, then you see that they're really not that good. Then we see other situations where the prolific offense is the prolific offense. And we've seen those at Ohio State. We've seen the other kind at Ohio State as well, where they can prove it against anyone. Still, 66 points against a Big Ten defense, for as ragtag as it could be at times, is still mighty impressive. This offense gets better by the week, and they are really clicking at this point. So how much do you take away from the big 66 points followed up the 52-point or 45-point first half against Rutgers?
Yeah, I think you got to be pretty impressed. I think you got to be emboldened by the fact that this offense is attacking defenses in a lot of different ways. They're throwing underneath, they're throwing deep, they're running the football, they're throwing to the back out of the backfield. The special teams are starting to come on. You're getting strong kick and punt returns. Mecca Buka on kick returns and Garrett Wilson on punt returns are picking up several first downs for you and improving your field position with every return that they make. So that really sets up your offense to succeed even better when they can start on their own 30 or 40 or at midfield, as opposed, I think Ohio State's first touchdown drive, they started on their own 12 after a holding penalty on Harrison, I think, on the kickoff. So to my way of thinking, this is a team that is coming together at the right time. They've had some very difficult life experiences with the Oregon game and the Minnesota game, really, both. Stroud is really coming into his own. Some of the throws he made, and I put two of them on Twitter, he threw off his back foot to Jackson Smith-Njigba down the middle of the field and threw like a frozen rope that just was never more than about 8 or 9 feet off the ground, and threw it right over the defender to Smith-Njigba for about a 44-yard gain. And then the other one I put on Twitter, they were ahead 42-10 at the time, and it was a fourth down, and it's kind of like, well, kick the field goal, we're up 42, let's go for it. And he threw the ball into the end zone, and Olave was not really open. The guy was all over him to the point where the guy had a hold of him, and Olave was able to get off of the defender. The ball seemed to hit the defender. Olave got off the defender and somehow caught the carom, falling backward in the end zone for a touchdown. And that's just uncanny on both of their parts, really. And again, it's fourth down and it's 42-10. So it's not like it was a 7-3 game and you're trailing 7-3 and you've got to score a touchdown or the game's over. It was kind of like a no fault, situation. If you didn't get it, big deal. But the plays that they are making are just nothing short of uncanny. Travion Henderson coming out of the backfield on a swing pass for like a 30-yard touchdown or whatever that was pretty amazing as well. So they didn't establish the run all that great this past week. Maryland had a run stuffer at defensive tackle, Tony. And as I was going back and watching the game on the 60-minute version on Big Ten Network, he would stuff Henderson for like a 3-yard gain, and he would get up and he'd go like this every time. And I'm like, bro, it's 28-3 or 21-10. What's this stuff? But that was the one guy who came to play for Maryland, was their run stuffing defensive tackle. But beyond that, Ohio State made them look silly. They made Rutgers look silly the week before. I think you got to be cautiously optimistic about this team. They're going to play some great defenses in the second half with Penn State, with Michigan, potentially Iowa. I have not watched Michigan State play much at all. I'm interested on Saturday. They play at Indiana. And back to your point about the separation, I don't think anybody at this point expects Indiana, Rutgers, or Maryland to beat any of the other teams in the division the rest of the way based on what we saw. But Indiana is desperate for a win. Is Michigan State for real? We think they might be. They went down to Miami and won by 3 touchdowns, which I think is probably still their most impressive win of the year. So I'll be interested watching that game. Penn State and Michigan, I believe, are off this week. So as Ohio State is. So a lot of great football. There are 60 games involving those 4 teams at the top. And this will be how the Big Ten Eastern was won in 2021. It's who dominates those 6 games down the stretch.
I will be rooting for Michigan State this week and Michigan against Northwestern next week, so that those 2 teams are 7-0 when they meet in the East Lansing, both top 10 teams, and that's going to be the biggest game for the Paul Bunyan Trophy in some time. To get back to what Bobby Heath said, how much should the fans be hesitant of believing the hype of the team before they play a tough team? Don't be hesitant. Be fans. If you're going to be hesitant, then how are you even able to enjoy these wins? There's only 12 regular season games a year. Last year, there wasn't even that. Enjoy each game. Don't be like, oh, yeah, but it's just this or it's just that. Enjoy them. There's only so many of them. And if it turns out that this is a national title team and you didn't enjoy every game, like you've missed the bulk of the season because you're like, well, I just don't feel you. So I'm saying enjoy it. Be all in. Be fans, be fanatics, be all in on the team. And that's why the losses hurt so much. If you just, you know what, I'm just going to freeze myself off from it so that I'm not emotionally connected to a loss, or then you can't be connected to a win either. So I would say believe the hype, because that's what you should do. And at this point, they're playing so well. They're doing so many things. And who on the regular season schedule would they not be doing this to? And Penn State is tough. Yes, Ohio State is better than all of these teams. So are you going to wait for – you just going to skip the entire regular season? Are you going to be excited to play number 2 Iowa that is definitely not the number 2 team in the nation, and you know that, so are you just going to wait like, well, of course they should be Iowa. So do you wait for the 2 playoff games before you really get invested in the season? Because that's the wrong way to do it. You look forward to the college football season all year long. Enjoy it. Don't just wait for the 2 games in January, because that's no way to enjoy it, especially when generally the season ends in a loss. So then what's the point in even in being a college football fan at that point? So believe, enjoy, experience, go to a game that isn't Ohio State. We love college football. Make the most of it. Don't put yourself in a cocoon so that you don't get hurt. Don't be a wallflower. Be a party goer. That's just my rant.
Love it. I love it.
Like
I'm right there with you. I have made that statement a couple times during the off season, not nearly as effectively as Tony, but you're rooting for Purdue. Who are you not playing, especially in the Big Ten schedule, that you're not thinking, okay, well, this is a competitive game. I've got investment in this game because we're playing everyone down the line. We could win or they could win, but it seems like the better the team, that fan base is just basically, they're looking at like 2 games a year, and everything else is just, well, we got to play Maryland this week. We got to get through Rutgers. Who cares? It's Oregon, Penn State, and we'll see what Michigan's doing at that point. That's it. And yeah, there's only 12 of these, for as low grade as some of them are.
We saw another game at Ohio Stadium under 100,000. It's like people are treating these things as annoyances almost until like the good stuff starts. And that's, it shouldn't be that way. And yes, prices of everything, they're outrageous, and the product at home is much cheaper and just as good. But, invest in this stuff. And if not with your money, at least with your time and your emotions. I mean, come on, let's like Jim Valvano said every day, move yourself to tears, to laughter, to, whatever. College football will do that for you.
This season will especially do that to you. It's been a really good one. And for me, it's been fun. More fun than I anticipated because of the unpredictability of it. Some team down south lost on Saturday that people weren't expecting.
Tennessee?
That's crazy.
Tennessee, yeah. Which, I won't go on my rant because I got plenty of opportunities to do that. So, Yakov, thank you for the super chat. Appreciate that. D, not yet the steel curtain. Likens it to a wood fence. And with that offense, maybe the wood fence gets it done.
Well, Yeah, I'll go real quick here. You don't need a great defense to win a national championship. You need a great offense, and you need to outscore somebody. And if that wood fence can keep somebody from scoring 35, and you score 35, and that's enough, I agree. I don't know if it's a wood fence yet, but I think a wood fence is good enough.
Yep, so far so good. If if the offense can get you 35 points a game, you're going to win most of these games, if not all of them. Um, I like what I see out of the defense. I think it's an experience thing that they needed. And I particularly I've put the defensive ends and the linebackers on blast. And this past week, although Zach Harrison didn't have any sacks, he was in constant chase of Taulia Tagovailoa, chased him into the arms of other people a couple times, which is almost the same as you getting the sack, basically. You created the pressure, you collapsed the pocket. I thought Zach Harrison played one of his best games, even though statistically it may not have shown it. They're still waiting to get Tyreek Smith back at the other defensive end spot. Javonte Jean-Baptiste had a roughing the passer penalty, which I think a lot of people were kind of lukewarm on that. To me, he did hit him late, but the contact wasn't all that severe. And again, he just needs to have a better feel for the game. He can't do that in that situation. I think it was a third down stop, and it prolonged the drive for Maryland, although they did not – I don't think they ended up scoring as a result of it. So if they did, maybe they got a field goal. I don't recall. But at any rate, I think the linebacker group, I've put them on blast for lack of production. It sounds like for the two spots that they are playing at linebacker right now, they have got four guys who they are rotating and who are all doing a bang-up job with Steel Chambers, Tommy Eichenberg, and the two guys who have been starting, Taraja Mitchell and Cody Simon. And I like what Coach Day said was, okay, we play a 70-play game, and we split that down the middle, 30 or 40 plays for each of those four guys, and you get their maximum for 30 or 40 plays. That's pretty good. We can live with that. So, and obviously that each of those four guys has something that they do different or better than the other one, so they can pick and choose what down and distance and personnel grouping. If it's two tight end personnel, they can have this guy on the field or whatever. But you get my gist, is that I'm seeing progress out of the two position groups on defense that I did not like a game or two ago, that were just still not up to snuff, and now they're starting to play quality football. I don't think it's championship quality football. I think the defensive tackles have been championship quality. I think the corners, by and large, have been close to championship quality. Safeties have been very good. Ronnie Hickman is probably the MVP of the defense right now, I would think. I think on Maryland's first possession last week that resulted in a field goal, it was a long drive, 11 or 12 plays. I think he had 4 tackles on that first possession alone, and he was all over the field. Between the tackles, out by the sideline, he was everywhere. So more Ronnie Hickman is what I say, but Lathan Ransom has been kind of up and down a little bit, but I like it. I think that, with this week off to fine-tune, get under the hood, and really delve into what they can do and what they can't do, and bring everybody along fundamentally. There were some tackling issues in this last game. The touchdown they gave up toward the end looked like somebody whiffed on the receiver at the line of scrimmage. It was kind of a bubble screen. And then Bryson Shaw, of course, that was Rakeem Jarrett, I believe. And he's a big, strong receiver, and he just kind of warded off Shaw going down the sideline, and maybe an unfair fight there. But at any rate, got to do a little better with the tackling. But 17 points to Maryland, that's no disgrace in that.
No. To cover a couple of the linebacker questions, because I think it's all encompassing. One was about Pauliano Teote and maybe getting some more time. For me, it's just he's been the Sam linebacker, and obviously they couldn't give him too much in camp because they didn't know if he was going to play. So they had to give the most of the stuff to the guys who were going to play. Now I don't know if he is still that Sam, because he was out and he didn't really play last week. But right now, the linebackers are playing so well as the foursome, the duo twosome, as Steve said. Like right now, I don't know that you're going to mix that up. You're going to change anything. If now Teote moves inside, that wouldn't shock me because there are still some depth issues there. But those guys are playing so well that you can just continue to roll them. The problem is that there maybe weren't enough third and short situations. That's when now Teote comes in. That's when Craig Young comes in. And so really it's just situational in terms of how often he'll play and just happenstance, basically, where are there third and shorts, then he'll probably come in and be that third linebacker. But when it's a normal down, they don't do three linebackers. So that's going to limit now Teote. And if he moves inside, that's going to limit him even more because you've got four guys who are playing well there right now. And one of those guys is Steele Chambers, who I believe was the player of the game defensively for the Buckeyes against Maryland, and with good reason. It's funny to see guys miss tackles, and then he comes in out of nowhere to clean them up. And he has been as close to a natural. I think there's a couple of naturals. Denzel Burke has been a natural, but this was his worst game, the Maryland game. He almost gave up a bad touchdown. But Steele Chambers, for what he has done, he's never not impressed whenever we've seen him on offense or defense. This is a guy who averaged 9 yards a carry as a running back. That's pretty good. And now is averaging, 6 or 7 tackles in limited minutes as a linebacker and brings guys down, is where he should be, does what he should do, and is only going to get better. And he kind of reminds me a little bit of Brian Shazier, and you wonder what he could have been if he had been a linebacker from the get-go. And he doesn't like talking about that because this is the path he chose, so why look back? But when he is taking minutes from Taraji Mitchell, the senior captain, who Taraji Mitchell was the closest thing to a sure thing Ohio State had at linebacker this year. And Steele Chambers has come in, and they share that will linebacker position. So they share minutes, and they're going to be even throughout this year. And it wouldn't shock me to see Steele Chambers taking more minutes in bigger games. But yeah, right now that foursome, Tommy Eichenberg, you see less and less hate on Twitter. There's still hate on Twitter for him just because that's what people do. But with him and Cody Simon as those middle linebackers, they're all doing really well. And as Steve said, they can do different things and different looks from an offense. Okay, let's go with these two guys. But you keep them fresh. You do it at defensive end, you do it at defensive tackle, nobody complains. Ohio State has done it for years at cornerback when they're able. This is really the first time we saw Dallas Justin Hilliard get some time last year. But really, this is the first time we've seen this kind of rotation at linebacker that I remember, and it's going pretty well. So I don't think they're going to stop it anytime soon. And Steele Chambers has been fantastic.
We appreciate everybody being here for Buckeyes Live. Especially, we appreciate Steve and Tony being here each and every week, typically Kevin Noon as well. So show your appreciation. You can do that a number of ways. Keep in mind that these guys give more than the hour that they give right here just to make this work each and every week. Steve seems to be the leader in regards to, okay, boys, this is what's going on this week. We got basketball and we got How about? Okay, Steve says it's 11 a.m. on Wednesday. That works for everybody. Let's do it. So, Steve, I appreciate you getting ahead of the curve on most occasions to do that.
Well, the only reason I had to bump this up today, got a special event this afternoon. My dad is an avid golfer. He's 78 years old, and he and I are going to play with my son, who's 22, I guess, now. And so we had an opportunity to get out today. We're going to play at Mound Builders Country Club in Newark. A friend of mine is a member there, and should be a nice, memorable day for all of us to get out to go play. And the weather here in Ohio has been nothing short of remarkable. I think September, well, of course, now we've bled into October. I think September and October are two of the best months of the year, really from the middle of September. If one month counted as the middle of September until the middle of October, it would be the single best month of the year for weather because it's so dependable that the weather is typically in the 70s or 80s almost every day. It's going to push 80 again here today in Ohio on October the 13th. And, I don't know if global warming is a thing or not, but I don't remember this as a kid. And other thing that comes to memory, Ohio State played a night game at Purdue about 10 years ago, and it was the first or second weekend in October. And I remember driving by Mackey Arena, which had a time and temperature sign out front. And that day, as we were driving to the game, it was 91 degrees in early October going to the game at Purdue. Thankfully, it was an 8 o'clock game, but it was still a sweaty mess over there in Purdue. So just my little aside on the weather and trends for the early fall. And, it's going to change quickly here. It'll get down into the 40s here before we know it. But for right now, it's perfect conditions, and we're taking full advantage of it today. And the bye week, by the way, as well. Less work to do.
Tony, you're typically good at this. Purdue at night, West Lafayette. I think that was maybe 07.
Yeah, I don't know. That's
7, 8
on that one. 23-7 game. I'm going to check myself
Yeah,
on this one.
23-7 sounds right.
That sounds right.
So I'll be doing that.
It's a very trestle score, at least.
It
I
is.
think Beanie Wells
I think that was an ABC game. Like Purdue was off to a decent start, fairly mid-season, early season. They gave Purdue some love on ABC. I think
Beanie Wells was playing for the Buckeyes, as I recall. They had a night game at Iowa too around that time, either the year before or the year after, kind of the same situation. But they won them both.
That one too.
Yeah, that was back when they used to beat those teams on the road. But of course now they just beat everybody. So at least in the Big Ten, Ryan Day still undefeated in the Big Ten. That's going to be tested over the next 7 weeks. I think that one's going to be up in the air a couple times, I think, down the stretch this year.
Sue, we thank you so much for the super chat. Appreciate you being here all the time. Sue's faithful in regards to being here. She also sends out those tweets and lets people know that we're here talking Ohio State football in particular. Is a big Buckeyes fan, but Sue supports the channel regardless of what we got going on. So we appreciate that.
Sue is great. I feel like we should be super chatting her,
Absolutely. Sue's outstanding. Outstanding. I wish I could remember what Steve just mentioned that was going to lead me into our next part of this. The Big Ten being unprecedented in regards to rankings at this point of the year with 5 teams in the top 10. And we started to delve into the division race a little bit. Steve, out of Michigan, Michigan State, Penn State. So with this separation, I think we can disregard everybody else. I got to say, when we start talking Michigan State football, and I watched the Rutgers game, the meaningful portion of it, I got to recalibrate my thoughts on Michigan State. I just have this. I had of course, perception of where they were as a program going into the season, which wasn't very high. I missed it on Michigan State as much as anybody in the country. Number one. Number two, even good Michigan State teams, I still have this defense and running game. And even during the last portion of D'Antonio's tenure, they weren't even a running team, and I still had to break myself of that. They really were not a good running team, and it was Connor Cook and them throwing the ball, Brian Lewerke. That this Michigan State team, they're an explosive offense. Like, I have to, again, I looked at the numbers and thought they threw for 340 yards. They only completed like 16 passes, and they got Jalen Reed and Naylor running down the field, making all sorts of big plays. So anyway, Steve, I say all that to get us to Michigan, Michigan State, Penn State. Who do you believe in? Who do you trust to a certain extent? Where do you think that stands in regards to talent, ability, and most likely how that's going to play out between the three of them?
That is a great question. I would say Penn State would be at the top of that list if we knew that Clifford is going to be okay. I texted our beat reporter at Penn State today to ask him what he knew or what he thought, and he seems to think it is either a back or a shoulder issue for Sean Clifford. And so when you put that in context, maybe a couple weeks of rest would be good for him. They're off this week, and then they have the human bye week the following week with Illinois. So they actually have a couple of weeks here that they can get it done. I know that their backup, when they put him in the game, the AP ran a stat that they ran 46 plays and netted 50 yards with him as the quarterback. And I was listening to that game. I was driving home, and I had to make a few stops on the way home after the game. So I'm listening to the broadcast, and it was one mistake after another, a lot of false start, probably 5 false start penalties with that guy in the game. And I know if it was Todd Blackledge or whoever was doing the game kept saying, they're trying to clap, and you can't clap with this loud Iowa crowd there. So I think Penn State is for real, particularly if Clifford is available. I think Michigan's defense seems to be pretty good. I think Michigan's offense is a little spotty still, and you can maybe take some things away from them if you're out physical them. Michigan State, as I said, I just have not watched as closely as the others. They just haven't been on at a time when it was convenient for me to flip over and see them play. But you read the box score, and what is it? Peyton Thorne is the quarterback, and he's thrown for 250 every week. And Kenneth Walker III is the running back, and he's pushing 200 yards a lot of weeks. So I see people have him on their Heisman ballot right now. So he's put up some huge numbers. Again, Michigan State hasn't won anything in probably about 6 years. So it's been a long time between drinks of water for Michigan State. So these are heady times for them, and that can cut one of two ways. Either you're so giddy and just so euphoric over how well things are going that you're oblivious to the tight situations that you're in, and you just keep on winning. Or when that tight moment comes, you freeze up and say, okay, we're playing on house money. It doesn't really matter what we do here. And they let one or two slip away down the stretch. I think Alabama in one of Saban's first few years was 9-0 at the start, and then they ended up 9-3. It was kind of that same principle that they hadn't won anything for a long time and got there to the end of the season and then just couldn't finish it. So is Michigan State going to end up 9-3, or they got a realistic chance of ending up 10-2, 11-1? I don't know. I don't know if anybody's going to go 0-3 in those games against one another. You look at Michigan, I think they have to go to Penn State and Michigan State, and that's going to be tough for them. Ohio State's got Michigan and Penn State at home, but has to go to Michigan. So, man, they're all good. I don't know that any of them are national championship good. And if Ohio State plays like they're capable, I don't think any of them are capable of beating Ohio State. So I think the rankings are probably about right the way they are right now.
Before Tony goes, you guys wouldn't believe how many times, if there's something that's fairly inaccurate or stated within a conversation, how many people want me to call people out. So anyway, I'll bring it full circle, Steve, in regards to what you had to say about this Alabama team that lost 3 games, because that was the 2010 team. And they actually, they underachieved. They had won the national championship in 2009. Then they go into 2010, number 1. They lose 3 games, but it was one of those, they lost 3 games, but we still know that they're really, really, really good and loaded. And that was a team that played a 1-loss Michigan State team in the Capital One Bowl, and 11-1, the team that tied Ohio State's Tressel's last team, and Wisconsin for the Big Ten championship the 1 year prior to the first Big Ten championship game. So anyway, a 11-1 Michigan State team against that Alabama team that you referenced, and Alabama won that game 49-7. They got a hold of a team that had overachieved a little bit. Tony, Michigan State, Penn State.
Let me touch on that bowl game with the SEC. Michigan State just didn't want to be there. Yeah, Alabama did.
You're 11-1. You.
So that's how it is. When they lose the Sugar Bowl to Hawaii or whatever that was that 1 year.
Didn't want to be there.
Didn't want Utah.
Oh, wait. Yeah.
It all runs together.
It doesn't work that way, Tony. No.
No? Oh.
Well, Big Ten teams always want to be in bowl games and always do their best.
Yes.
They only lose because they're not talented enough. They're not fast enough.
Especially not fast enough. Yes, we all know that all too well. The thing that I like about Michigan State is that they have changed things completely around. Like they have turned it completely around. So it's hard for me to believe in them, but also look what they've done. I mean, it's not nothing. Now, could they trip up at Indiana? Absolutely. Do I think it's going to happen? That wouldn't shock me because it's still Michigan State, and Indiana has a decent defense, but Michigan State may have the second best offense in the Big Ten, and Kenneth Walker may be the Silver Football Award winner this year. They are, I think, second in the Big Ten in yards per carry, first in just conference games. Peyton Thorne is number 2 in passing efficiency behind C.J. Stroud. So they're able to throw the ball. They're able to run it. They're balanced. You want to take Kenneth Walker away? Okay, they've got some big play receivers. Defense has been playing well also. I've been completely blown away by what Mel Tucker has done. I did not think this was really possible. Certainly not this year. Like, let's see what he can do over the course of the years. Not this year, especially after last year being a complete mess for so many other teams. Now, the good thing for Michigan State, both Penn State and Michigan come to East Lansing. So they'll have the advantage there. And I'm not even a believer in Penn State's offense with Sean Clifford. They're better, certainly, but they don't run. Like, I think Big Ten teams can stop them in the run. Not a huge believer in Cade McNamara at Michigan. He's very limited. The running game is coming and going now, and I don't know that they're all that difficult to scheme for, especially if they're not going to be executing at a particularly high level with the passing game. So I think Michigan State could definitely beat those two teams, and then see what happens when they come to town at Ohio State. But I can only focus on the next couple of weeks. Let's get Michigan State and Michigan at 7-0. Like I said, I'm afraid that will also incorporate that is October 30th, which is Ohio State Penn State, which will probably be a night game at this point, as I think what we're thinking. So that Michigan State will be a 3:30, or maybe is that a big noon? I'm
That'd
not
be
sure.
big noon.
Sounds like
I think
one.
they're going to get the second pick and make that big noon. I think ABC's going to get the first pick and put OSU at night.
So I would love to be able to sit and watch that game and then get in the car and head to campus for two very huge games, and that's not even like Wisconsin and Iowa play that same day, I think, as well. So a big day. Could have been made bigger by a better Wisconsin team, but I'll take it.
Well, Wisconsin could be the version of spoiler in that division.
Mm-hmm.
They certainly could play that role. Michigan State, I'm already thinking is spoiler, but hey, they're playing for the championship. They're undefeated. But yeah, when asked about possible upsets this week, I looked at Indiana, Michigan State and thought that doesn't seem like one to a lot of people, but from a talent perspective, they're pretty much even.
What I'm going to do, Mark, is I'm just going to wait to see what Steve Day says, because his picks have been outstanding and crazy this year. So whatever he says, then I will I'm going to start copying his answers on our picks every week. He's
got a system. He has got a system. When you look at our records on there, that's why I trumpet if you can pick the winner of the game, not the point spread, then that's when you really know what you're talking about. There's really more value to that from a pure standpoint, pure football standpoint.
The purity.
Yes, the purity of the game.
Right.
Who cares what you win by? That shouldn't matter. When in fact, for most people out there listening to us, that's all that matters.
That's the only thing that matters.
That they cover the spread.
Yeah. Yeah. I know Michigan, what were they favored at Nebraska? Like 3.5, and didn't they win by 3 or something? And so that half point or whatever meant a lot. I could be wrong, but Iowa was favored by only 1.5, and they win by 3. So that was a close one on that scale. Ohio State was favored by 20. I thought that was a license to print money, I thought, last week. As I told the guy I work with, Pat Murphy, we were driving maybe away from the Rutgers game. And of course, it's fresh in your memory at that time, the way Ohio State lit up the scoreboard against Rutgers. I told Pat, I said, they're going to keep shooting off those cheap fireworks in the south end zone. all day long against Maryland, and by God, they did. So, what can you do?
Speaking of the guy that's making all that happen on offense, the trigger man, I can't believe his name has yet to be mentioned, and we're at the end of the show, but quickly, he's gone from, I'm not talking about decision makers thinking this of him, but he's pretty much gone from he needs to be benched to he's on short list for Heisman Trophy candidacy, Tony.
Yeah, and I don't know that he ever was totally off that list, and now he's moving up. And for the first time in school history, Ohio State had a 400-yard passer with 5 touchdowns and no interceptions. His last 2 games, he's thrown 10 touchdowns with no interceptions, also the first time in school history. And so you've got a guy who is doing something that Dwayne Haskins never did, Justin Fields never did. Those are the 2 best passing quarterbacks in Ohio State history. And he is now starting, he's got 5 starts under his belt. So he's already got 2 400-yard games. That is second most in school history. He passed Art Schlichter with his most recent outing of 400 yards. Now I think he's about 4 behind Dwayne Haskins, and will eventually catch him by some point, I don't know, in September next year, I guess. We'll see. But has been incredibly impressive after getting that week off, watching somebody else do his job. That probably bothered him a little, and it continues to motivate him. And knowing that if you're not playing well, there are guys behind you who can also do this. Kyle McCord threw for over 300 yards. So, yeah, you're going to have to just continue to pick it up. Steve, as they say, iron sharpens iron as well.
Yep, no doubt. They're shooting off the tornado siren here. I don't think we're having a tornado, but it's the weekly test. But at any rate, yes, what he has done has been nothing short of uncanny so far, and you just want to see if he can continue to take it on. You mentioned that the silver football, I think Stroud may have his name engraved on it if the Buckeyes can go the distance here, and we'll just have to wait and see. So many great storylines for the second half of the season, and yet, he's off to a great start. There's only been 3 guys in OSU history to have 400-yard games, and only one other guy's done it in multiple games, and that was Dwayne Haskins. He did it 5 times. Stroud's now done it twice, and the other one was Art Schlichter, who did it once. So, it is heady things that this kid's into so far.
Steve, where can people find you?
Bucknuts.com and at Steve Hellwagon on Twitter, and trying to fill up the open week with all kinds of football-centric content and get ready for a stretch run that none of us are probably ever going to forget. So some amazing games coming our way straight ahead.
Tony.
You can find me at BuckeyeScoop.com or on Twitter at Tony Gerdeman. And it's a bye week, but it's not really a week off. So, just continue to crank out content. We had a bunch of stuff from Ryan Day and Kerry Combs yesterday that will continue to produce and write some stories the rest of the week, and then get forward to what may be considered an off week in terms of the biggest games, but that's also when some of the craziest stuff happens. So I'll be looking forward to that. And I always love being home for a weekend of football. I saw somebody ask what Steve and I would be doing this weekend. I will be watching college football on Saturday. I will be watching college football on Friday, probably watch a little bit of college football on Thursday, and then, get ready for another week on Sunday.
Oregon, Cal on Thursday, Clemson, Syracuse on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, some interesting stuff. I'm actually going to go visit my daughter down at Miami University this weekend and check in with her down there. So I am making good use of my, quote, week off. And, she says, you never come down to see me. Well, be careful what you wish for, because we're blowing into Oxford this weekend.
Christopher says, these guys are just ridiculous. We'll take that as a compliment. I will take that as nothing else than that, which leads me to, where you all can find me? Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. And I want you to put Ohio State on your contribution if you enjoy this show, as I know all of you do each and every week, and bring some more folks in here as well. All right, Steve, we appreciate it. Tony, you as well, of course. And you guys have a great week. Enjoy the football this weekend. Enjoy the trip to go see your daughter, Steve.
Yes, we will.